What if I told you that South Korea, the land of K-pop, cutting-edge technology, and neon-lit megacities, was hiding a reality that few outsiders ever see? A country where ancient traditions clash with hyper-modern lifestyles. Where the pressure to succeed is so high that it shapes every moment of people's lives. And what if I told you that behind the dazzling skyscrapers and global fame, there's a side of South Korea that remains in the shadows? It's a nation of paradoxes, a place that has shocked the world with its rapid rise but now faces challenges no one is talking about. Today, we uncover the truth, the struggles, the beauty, the myths, and the hidden heartbeat of a nation that defines modern Asia. This is South Korea, like you've never seen it before. South Korea is a nation of extreme contrasts. On one hand, it's home to some of the most futuristic cities in the world. Seoul, a sprawling metropolis of nearly 10 million people, pulses with energy 24/7, where hyperspeed internet, self-driving taxis, and robots serving food are just a normal part of daily life. But step into a quiet alleyway, and you'll find something entirely different. Centuries-old temples, Hanok villages frozen in time, and elders practicing taekyon, a martial art passed down for generations. This is a country where the old and the new don't just coexist, they collide. South Korea wasn't always this way. In fact, just 70 years ago, it was one of the poorest nations on Earth, devastated by war, famine, and occupation. Yet in just a few decades, it transformed into one of the world's top economies, giving birth to global giants like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG. It's a country that thrives on ambition, discipline, and relentless innovation. But that rapid success came at a cost, and the price is still being paid today. To understand this nation, we have to go beyond the surface, beyond the viral K-pop performances, the luxury shopping streets, and the high-tech wonders. What is life really like in South Korea? What does it mean to be Korean today? Let's begin. Walk through the streets of Seoul at midnight, and you'll see something strange. The city is still awake. Office workers, still dressed in suits, stumble out of bars, exhausted from another 12-hour workday. Teenagers, eyes bloodshot, rush from their hagwons, private after-school academies, where they study late into the night, preparing for the ultimate test that will decide their future. In South Korea, success isn't just encouraged, it's demanded. The pressure begins from childhood. From the age of 5 or 6, children are enrolled in intensive education programs. By middle school, students spend up to 16 hours a day studying, waking up before dawn and going to sleep past midnight. And then comes the Sunyong, South Korea's national university entrance exam. A single test that is so critical, airplanes are grounded to ensure silence during the listening portion. One test, one chance, a single moment that decides your future. Get a high score, and you secure a place in one of the country's top universities. Fail, and society brands you as an outsider. This level of pressure doesn't stop at school. It follows Koreans into adulthood, into a corporate world that expects total dedication. South Korea has some of the longest working hours in the world. Overtime isn't just common, it's expected. And leaving the office before your boss? Unthinkable. It's no surprise that mental health struggles are at an all-time high. The silent epidemic, mental health and isolation. South Korea is one of the most technologically advanced nations on Earth. Yet despite being more connected than ever, loneliness is on the rise. The country has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, particularly among students and the elderly. Mental health issues are rarely discussed. Many see them as a sign of weakness. The stigma is so strong that seeking therapy could cost someone a job opportunity or ruin their reputation. And then there's the growing number of young Koreans who are choosing to disappear entirely. They're called hikikomori, people who withdraw from society, refusing to leave their rooms for months or even years. In a culture that demands success, many would rather vanish than face failure. But what happens when an entire generation begins rejecting the very system that built their country? There's a phrase that's been growing in popularity among young South Koreans: Sampo generation. It means the generation that gives up 3 things: love, marriage, children. For decades, South Korea's success was built on hard work, family values, and societal expectations. But today, young people are pushing back. They're rejecting relationships, they're refusing to get married, and they're choosing not to have children because they simply can't afford to. South Korea's birth rate is now the lowest in the world. If this trend continues, experts predict that South Korea's population could start shrinking rapidly, leading to an economic crisis. And the government is panicking. Billions of dollars have been spent on programs encouraging people to have more children. but nothing is working. Why? Because many Koreans no longer believe in the dream that their parents chased: a stable job, a home, a happy family. For millions of young people, these things feel completely out of reach. The cost of living has skyrocketed. Housing prices in cities like Seoul are so high that even well-paid professionals struggle to afford an apartment. Many are simply giving up, choosing freedom over a life dictated by tradition. But in this rejection of old values is a revolution beginning. But beyond the struggles, there's another side to South Korea that few outsiders see. A world of hidden temples, untouched landscapes, and underground movements redefining what it means to be Korean. In the mountains, Buddhist monks practice sunmudo, a meditative martial art dating back centuries, completely disconnected from modern life. In small independent cafes, young artists, writers, and musicians challenge the strict rules of K-pop and mainstream entertainment, creating raw, unfiltered expressions of their reality. And in the heart of Seoul, there's a hidden street known as Seocheon, where time seems to stand still. Old bookstores, family-run tea houses, and alleyways untouched by modernization whisper stories of a different Korea, one that refuses to be forgotten. For all its struggles, South Korea is a country that never stops evolving. But the question remains, where is it heading next? South Korea is often seen as a hyper-modern paradise, a nation of flawless beauty, relentless ambition, and limitless success. But how much of that is actually true? Let's break down the biggest myths and misconceptions about South Korea and uncover the shocking reality behind them. Myth number 1, everyone in South Korea is obsessed with K-pop and K-dramas. To the outside world, South Korea is synonymous with K-pop, K-dramas, and Korean beauty standards. From BTS and Blackpink to Squid Game and Parasite, Korean entertainment has taken over the world. But here's the truth. Not every Korean is obsessed with K-pop or K-dramas. In fact, many Koreans have mixed feelings about the way their culture is being commercialized and globalized. For younger Koreans, K-pop isn't just music. It's an industry that demands perfection. Idols train for years, sometimes from childhood, under extreme pressure. Their contracts, known as slave contracts, are often brutal, controlling their weight, personal lives, and even their ability to date. The entertainment industry is glamorous on the outside, but ruthless behind the scenes. And while the world sees K-pop as South Korea's greatest cultural export, many young Koreans see it as a system built on impossible expectations. Myth number 2. South Korea is a perfectly safe and harmonious society. South Korea is known for being one of the safest countries in the world. Low crime rates, strict laws, and a strong sense of social order make it a place where you can leave your phone on a cafe table and come back an hour later without worry. But does that mean there's no crime? Absolutely not. Beneath the surface, there's a rising problem that few people talk about: digital crime. South Korea has one of the highest rates of spy cam crimes in the world. Thousands of hidden cameras, found in public restrooms, hotel rooms, and even workplaces, have been used to secretly film and exploit victims. The problem is so widespread that women have protested by the thousands against what they call a surveillance culture. And then there's another dark secret: South Korea's underground crime networks. While violent crime is rare, organized crime syndicates still exist, running illegal gambling, cybercrime operations, and drug trafficking rings. In recent years, the country has seen a rise in hidden corruption scandals, exposing the fact that South Korea's clean image might not be so perfect after all. Myth number 3. South Korea is a country that fully embraces equality. To the world, South Korea seems like a progressive and forward-thinking society. But when it comes to gender equality, the reality is much more complicated. South Korea has the highest gender wage gap in the developed world. Women earn 34% less than men on average, and career advancement for women remains an uphill battle. Sexism is deeply embedded in Korean society, and the pressure for women to conform to traditional roles is still strong. And then there's the rising anti-feminist movement, a backlash against gender equality initiatives, particularly among young men who feel left behind by the economy. In a country known for its ultra-modern progress, gender inequality remains one of its biggest unresolved struggles. South Korea is a nation full of secrets and mysteries, some of which remain unsolved to this day. But one case stands out as one of the most chilling and bizarre stories in modern Korean history. The case of the missing millionaire, the Shincheonji cult scandal. In 2020, South Korea was hit by a crisis that no one saw coming: a secretive religious cult at the center of a national outbreak. The Shincheonji Church of Jesus, a mysterious, highly secretive Christian sect, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight when it was discovered that thousands of COVID-19 cases were linked to its members. But this wasn't just a simple case of infection. It was a full-blown conspiracy. The group's leader, Lee Man-hee, claimed to be a messianic figure chosen by God. His followers operated in secrecy, refusing to cooperate with health officials, spreading misinformation, and even hiding members from authorities. The government launched one of the largest crackdowns in modern history, raiding church facilities and arresting key figures. And yet, despite the public outrage, the Shincheonji Church still exists today, growing in secrecy, its influence still lurking in the shadows. This case revealed something deeply unsettling. In a country known for discipline and control, there are forces at play that remain beyond the reach of the law. South Korea has achieved unbelievable success in just a few decades. But now, the country stands at a crossroads. Its birth rate is collapsing. Its youth are rejecting traditional values. Its obsession with perfection is starting to crack under the weight of reality. So, what happens next? There are two possible futures. 1. South Korea reinvents itself. A second miracle? If South Korea can adapt, it could undergo a second transformation, one just as dramatic as its post-war rise. Countries like Germany and Japan have faced similar demographic crises, but invested heavily in automation, AI, and progressive social policies to maintain economic strength. South Korea is already leading in robotics, AI, and semiconductor technology. If it embraces workplace reforms, gender equality, and immigration, it could become a model for sustainable growth in the modern era. In this scenario, South Korea not only survives, but thrives, redefining what success looks like in the 21st century. But there's another possibility. 2. South Korea faces a crisis, a nation in decline. If nothing changes, South Korea's future could resemble that of Italy or Japan, countries struggling with declining populations, aging workforces, and stagnating economies. Right now, South Korea has the lowest fertility rate in the world, just 0.72 births per woman in 2023. To sustain its economy, a country typically needs a birth rate of 2.1. This isn't just a statistic, it's a warning sign. Lee Sang-lim, a demographic expert at the Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs, predicts that if the trend continues, South Korea's population could shrink by half within the next 70 years. The consequences? A labor crisis, too few workers to sustain industries, economic stagnation, a shrinking consumer base, and rising national debt. Social collapse, entire towns and cities becoming abandoned as birth rates continue to fall. If South Korea cannot reverse this decline, it may face an irreversible crisis. So, which future will it be? A nation that defied the odds once? Can it do it again? The next decade will determine whether South Korea thrives or struggles to survive. And in a world that looks to South Korea as a model of progress, one question remains. Can this country continue to be the miracle the world believes it is? South Korea is a country of contradictions. It is one of the most advanced nations in the world, yet many of its people feel trapped by their own system. It has built a culture of global influence, yet struggles with identity and change. It is admired for its success, yet haunted by the sacrifices that success required. So, what does South Korea really represent? It represents the price of ambition, the battle between tradition and change, and the never-ending struggle to define what it truly means to live. But now, the question is no longer about South Korea alone. If this nation, one of the fastest-growing, most ambitious countries on Earth, can face struggles this deep, then what else could the world be hiding from us? What surprised you the most about South Korea? Did this change the way you see the country? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a conversation. And if you love deep, eye-opening explorations like this, subscribe to The World Uncovered for more stories from around the globe, because the world is full of untold stories, and we're just getting started.